I've had a few people recently ask me about starting a podcast. I wanted to share that we use Buzzsprout. I love them. I am not techie, and it has been a wonderful experience. The other thing I like about Buzzsprouts is they get your show listed in every major podcast platform. Another cool thing is they have this really great looking podcast website that you'll get when you join them, audio players that you can drop into other websites, detailed analytics so you can see how people are listening, some great tools to promote your episodes, and just so much more. Podcasting really isn't that difficult if you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, check out Buzzsprout. You can click the link in the show notes, and that lets them know that we sent you. You're going to get a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for the paid plan, and then that also helps support our show. Thanks in advance, and start your podcast soon. Hi, I'm Curious Cass, and this is Curiosity Junkie. Today's guest is an award-winning author, storyteller, and neuroeducation activist. Please welcome Marc Clark to the show. Hi, Marc. How are you?
I'm excellent today.
Well, I have found you through Insight Timer, and I think we were just meditating at the same time. We started saying hi, and then I realized that you were an author of children's books. I got mine just the other day. I was so excited. I can't tell which way that's going. So I have these two.
A couple of them, yes.
Yes. And I was so excited that you were open to coming on and talking about writing and children's books. And so let's just dive in. Okay. My first question is, what got you to the point that you said, hey, I think I'm going to write a children's book?
I never really thought of myself as a writer. I thought writers know grammar and punctuation and they're authors and they're smart and know English. So I never thought of myself like that. And during a not too great divorce, I didn't get to see my daughter for almost a year.
Oh, wow.
And I was in therapy, and my therapist said, you're always telling me how you used to tell your daughter stories, maybe, and that you want to write them down someday. Maybe this would be the time to do that. And so I did, and it was exactly right because it made me feel like I was closer to her. I put in stuff about her without it being about her, and I took her friends' names and put them in as other princesses, and I ended up writing 11 different stories. And so I took this moment when my daughter was 6 years old, and she started her first day of first grade. And I have to tell you, my daughter, Taylor, she's like the happiest little girl in the entire world. She's still incredibly happy. And she'd like sing and dance all the time and run around. And she came home from her first day of first grade and was upset. And I went, Taylor, what's wrong? You love school. You love being around kids and teachers. She goes, yeah, but they're making me learn all day. She started crying. And so she really didn't want to go to school. She didn't get it. Everything was happy up until that moment, and now it's all work. And so she didn't want to go to school, so I would go and wake her up and go, Taylor, come on, you have to get out of bed. And she'd say, no. And I go, Taylor, did I ever tell you the story of the princess who always said no? She goes, no. So I'd make up a story about a princess who said no all the time. And by the time I was done, she forgot about that school wasn't great, and she'd skip off to the bus. But the next morning, the same thing would happen. I'd go and wake her up and go, Taylor, you have to get out of bed. And she'd hide under the covers. And I'd go, Taylor, did I ever tell you the story of the princess who hid under the covers? No. So I'd make up another story about another princess. And so the first book was 11 different stories of things that she might do or say to get out of bed or to get out of going to school. So I made them up again because it was 10 years later. So
wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, she was happy all the time, and she still is. I have a great story about her, but I'll let you ask questions and stuff.
No, you can share your story. I love that.
Well, when she was like 3 or 4, she heard me talking to her older brother, Nick, and I was telling him how he used to draw these dragons and he loved craft. He could spend hours doing it. And I said, that's kind of your gift. It's your gift for other people. She goes, what's my gift? What's my gift? And I went, you have the gift of happiness. All you have to do is take somebody's hand and say, I'm giving you the gift of happiness, and they'll be happy.
Oh,
And
I love it.
she went, oh, that's great. And at my brother's rehearsal dinner, it's like 20 people sitting around this big table. She goes, I'm going to give people my gift. And I went, go do it. And she walked around and held everybody's hand and said, I'm giving you happiness. And the whole table was laughing out loud. It was just so good. And I was talking to her, I don't know, a few months ago. And she said, I tell my friends that story. And they say, you're still like that.
Aww.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, yes.
I've heard, and I believe, that you can make decisions two ways. You have two choices. You can make them out of love, or you can make them out of fear. And she makes her decisions out of love. And I try to be like her whenever I can.
Wow, that's amazing. And isn't it wonderful to look at your children and go, I want to be like them?
Yeah, I do, both of them. My son is he's so much more responsible than I am. He's a carpenter. He lives in Brooklyn. He makes his own furniture. He's tall and handsome and smart and funny and an encyclopedic kind of knowledge. He listens to podcasts all day because he arranges all of his work and makes an assembly line for himself, and then puts on a podcast and then does his assembly line. And
that's
so
fantastic.
He knows everything about everything. He's like a coffee table book.
I love it.
It's like somebody mentions something, they go, cheers. And they go, oh, do you know where the cheers came from? It came from Vikings who poisoned each other, and they used to smash glasses together. So you go,
oh my God. Okay. You're like, wow, okay, random facts. I love it. Love it. Well, did you grow up with someone telling you stories? Did you have that?
Well, I grew up in the theater, so.
Okay, yes.
So kind of. There weren't people telling me stories, but I was always exposed to stories. And I read a lot. I think like a lot of kids, I read a lot for certain times in my life, not necessarily continuously. I try to read a lot now. But I think I used to tell stories. They told me when I was really little, I would make up stories that made no sense, but had little rabbits in them or something like that. So I started writing in high school or something like that, I think.
Right. Wow. High school. I had Dad. I love the memory of him telling us stories, and come to find out, which this is why I loved your writing, is that it was started with your stories to your daughter. Come to find out, they were stories. My parents were divorced, and so when he would pick us up, I guess my mom would say, oh, so I had trouble with this one, and they were doing this or whatever was going on. And so that night, he would play his guitar and he would tell us Cowboy Mo and Cowboy Joe stories about little cows who would get in trouble. And it was just like the cutest, totally connected to them. Yeah, it was so great. So I love that you told stories to your daughter. And my husband, he told the kids stories growing up, and they were Super Jakey and Kelly Birdie, and they went on adventures. And it was their nighttime routine. And we also did a lot of reading. And I just think it's so important to kind of keep them kids and to encourage imagination, because they get to visualize the story in their head for what it is. I just think it's beautiful.
Well, they say that top 10 things you can do to make your children intelligent and ready for the world is read to your kids, read to your kids, read to your kids, read to your kids. Right. It gives them a vocabulary. They figured out that kids who are read to, like every night before they go to bed or just in general, enter school with 1 million more words vocabulary than other children. So it's the best thing you can do, because it's also, it employs all the other senses too.
Yes.
Like what you usually lay down with your kids. So there's warmth, there's love, there's touching. They get to touch a book. there's lots of stuff that goes on when you read to your child. So I always encourage it.
Yes, I've always been a huge fan. This one here, what I loved, and I'm trying to get the glare off of it, what I loved about this is you did it in a dyslexic font. I'd never even heard of that.
I hadn't either. My friend who formats my books tried to talk me into doing that font for my previous novel, The Princess and the Parakeet. And it'd been taken so long to get the novel done and into print that I didn't want to spend more time.
Right.
But this book, The Invisible Boy and Other Unlikely Heroes, is all about, it's 6 stories about kids who don't fit in, who don't belong. And we went, that's perfect. We have to do it in a dyslexic font. It's not great for everybody. Dyslexia is different for a lot of different versions of it. So it's not necessarily easier to read, but it should be easier to read for almost everybody and a little easier for some people with dyslexia.
Yes, I thought that was I thought it was beautiful. When I first opened it, I was like, well, that's an interesting font. And then I was looking at the back and I'm like, oh, open dyslexic font. How fantastic. Because I was a reading teacher for a few years when my kids were little. And I always thought there are kids that are still struggling with dyslexia, and we didn't have tools really for them I was a para, so I didn't have the tools to really help them, and they're frustrated and the teachers get frustrated, and some of them don't even know they have it. Right. It's just I think it's a beautiful thing that it's even available. Like I think that's
Henry Winkler writes a lot of books with I can't remember her name right now, sorry. She runs the SCBWI, which is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators.
Oh, wow.
And they've written like 35 books together, but he writes about a character who has dyslexia because he did.
Yes. Yeah.
And they put him in the dyslexic font as well. I'm not sure if it's the same one or not.
Right. No, I think it's great. So your stories, as I was reading the back of this, I'm dying to know, are you characters in any of these stories? Do you feel the misfit connection that you write about?
Oh yeah. Yes. I tell people that I should always go back and read my own stories, because most of the answers to what I'm dealing with in life are there. And you'd think a book with 11 princesses in it would really not have a lot to do with me. You go, but they do. There's like one about being selfish. There's one about saying no to stuff. There's one about putting stuff off for another day. There's one about sitting back and not really joining life and stuff. So I think ultimately everything's about me. That they say that if you want to know a writer's darkest secrets, they're plainly laid out on every page of his book. So I have a manuscript which I'm really excited about. It's a retelling of Sleeping Beauty.
Oh, wow.
And when Sleeping Beauty is awakened after 100-year sleep, all of her muscles have atrophied. So she can't speak and she can't control her muscles. And she somehow shares the dreams of this girl who wakes up in modern times from a coma, and she has cerebral palsy and she can't speak or control her muscles. So they share each other's dreams, and they share each other's problems and challenges, but one in a fairy tale and one in real life. And I went, well, what could 2 princesses with special needs have to do with me? And like, how would that be a reflection of me? And I realized they talk to each other through glass, through mirrors. And it's ultimately, the story is ultimately a universal one instead of about how special needs are treated in our society. It's about, unless you look in the mirror and see a princess, or unless a princess looks in the mirror and sees the girl she most admires in the world, then you're not looking through glass correctly. You're not using the mirror right. Unless you see the best,
Right.
you're looking through other people's version of you.
Right. And that's a great universal message. Boys, girls, grown-ups.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it until I finished it and went, what does this have to do with me, really? Or how can this be about me? Because I wrote it for my niece who has cerebral palsy. And it turns out, yes, everything's about me.
No, I would think so, because it's coming out of you. So it would be relatable, which translate to complete relatability for the reader as well, because we all go through a lot of these situations, the feeling left out, the outsider.
Yeah, I think if you look at the titles, they all have like subtitles about. So originally, when I did it, I was thinking of finding therapists who specialize in each of these different things, because there's 6 different kids that they have to deal with. One is about fear. He's a kid who's afraid of the dark, and he's too small, so he doesn't feel like he's going to ever live up to being a prince. There's the invisible boy is the middle child who always feels like nobody sees him. There's a princess who has to lie in order to get attention, and what a lie does to you in your life, and a princess who isn't pretty and realizes it, and what she does and how she deals with it. And there's an orphan who doesn't care about anybody because he was raised by somebody who doesn't really love him. And then there's one more. What is she? She's adopted. So she doesn't know it, and she figures that out, and she has to find out who she is and stuff. So I was thinking of finding therapists or somebody who'd written books about each of these, so that I could do a teacher guide or a parent guide along with it. So if you have a child who's dealing with this problem of feeling excluded, that you would have other resources and stuff like that.
Right.
Because all I've written is a story, and not everybody gets it. So, and not everybody has that one thing. So
Right. I think I liked that you put a lot of them in this book. It's dealing with a lot of different issues, so that it speaks to a lot of different people, I guess. Yeah. And sometimes, as an adult, when you're reading books, you're getting something out of it as much as the child. So there's a wonderful message in there, I think, for adults as well.
Well, fairy tales are for everybody, I think, or the child in all of us. And I think there's a couple of quotes that I use a lot. C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia books, you know who that is. He said, "I can't wait until I'm old enough to read fairy tales again."
That is a great one.
Audrey Hepburn said, "If I'm honest, I have to admit I love fairy tales best of all."
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They really are for everybody, because everybody has their fables anyway, which is what I started writing.
Yes.
Have little lessons, not like major upheavals or anything like that, or big tests, but a little something to keep in mind, a little something to be better. And that's why I write fairy tales, because I believe in them, and I believe they're true. So.
Nice. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about writing. What is your writing process like? Do things just come to you, or?
It changes all the time, because I'm mostly self-published. There's nobody like standing over me saying this has to be delivered, or you have to write this next, or your audience is this, do this. I'm generally writing for elementary school, like 2nd through 5th grade is really like my niche, but it goes lower than that and above it too, and up to like any age. I experiment with writing because of that fact, because I don't have any restrictions. What I really do is get ready to write every day. So somebody helped me design my morning, because I didn't feel like I was being productive enough and or concentrated enough. So I try to start every day this way. The first thing I do is wake up and meditate. And then I usually work out either with weights or I'll go on a hike up into the mountains or something. And usually listen to podcasts or inspirational speakers or people that I like, Abraham Hicks, Joe Dispenza.
Yes, the good stuff.
Dyer, like people like that.
Yeah.
Or TED Talks, which I think are amazing.
Yes.
And then if I haven't hiked, I'll go for a walk and try not to think. And then I sit down and write longhand with nothing in mind. So I just put my pen on paper, and sometimes it's just gibberish. Sometimes it's, another book. Sometimes it's a problem in one of the stories I'm working on. And then that's usually like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Then I open my computer and write by inspiration instead of motivation. So that's the thing I realized after I wrote The Princess and the Parakeet, is that I'm not writing alone, that I'm calling on, because there's stuff in there that I didn't know when I wrote it, and now I do, and I look back and go, I hadn't even meditated, and that's like something, that's like an important thing that happens in the story. And I didn't know about all of these things that I put in there, but I would go back and read it like a couple of years later and go, oh, I'm doing that stuff now. Like,
what do they call that? Manifesting?
Manifesting, yes. So, yes.
Yeah.
So I realized I'm not writing alone, and I don't want to. I want to be like a vessel and write from inspiration and not motivation.
That's beautiful. I like it. So what advice would you have for young writers of any age? Because I love to encourage that. I think if someone feels creative, they should just do it. And I love that you self-publish, because I think in today's world, that's just a super wonderful, viable option for someone who wants to put a message out.
I would encourage anyone who writes, or anyone to write, actually, and to do kind of what I do, which is like start by writing gibberish, like just put your pen to paper and start journaling. That's usually the best place to start. Things happen because you write stuff down. The other thing about writing, I think, is to finish something. The difference between everybody else in the world and a writer is that a writer finished something.
That's great advice, honestly, because there are probably a lot of people out there that have several things started.
Yes.
And they're stuck.
Yeah. And you just finish things. And I write a bunch of stuff at the same time. Because I write from inspiration. If this isn't really doing it for me, then I put in, or I put out into the universe that here's the problem I'm trying to, because I make problems for myself, or whatever my influence is making problems for me to solve with that. And that's how to tell a simple story. You have somebody that's endearing, that you would like right away. Give them an impossible dream. Have them fail at their dream a few times, and then give them a solution from heaven.
I love it. That's great. Great advice. Thanks for sharing that.
Now I don't have to do my workshop.
Exactly.
But it's so much fun to do. Like they come up with the best stuff.
Fantastic. Okay, so someone should go to your workshop. So let's talk a little bit about how everybody can connect with you, because I think that's important, and where they can pick up copies of your children's stories.
Everything's on Amazon, but I like people to go to my store. So my website is The Fables Kingdom. And so if you go to thefableskingdom.com/store, you can find all my books there. And also 2 of my books, The Royal Fables, all of the money from that goes to a pediatric cancer foundation called the Ready or Not Foundation. And it supports children's cancer research and awareness at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston.
Okay.
So
yeah, I did see that, and I wanted to make sure we brought that up, because I love that you're connected to such a beautiful charity.
Yeah, it's so if you buy it on Amazon, they keep most of the money, and instead I'd rather all the money go to the foundation because they double it and send it along to the hospital. So, and the Princess and the Parakeet book you have, a certain amount of that, yes, a few dollars from that book goes to another pediatric cancer foundation called Brooks Blossoms, named after the little girl who asked me to write the story. She was 7 at the time, I think. 7 or 8, yeah. I met her through the Royal Fables. Because I went to the Texas Children's Hospital cancer centers and talked to kids and asked them to come up with a title for a prince or a princess story. And I picked 5 of them, and then I wrote the stories based on their titles. And then they and their families and some other schools and stuff did all the drawings and illustrations for it.
That's what I saw. Yes, the drawings and the illustrations. So fun. Mm-hmm.
So Brooke was one of the little girls who volunteered a title and did a couple of the drawings. So she became a friend of mine.
Aww.
She was in New York. She's from Texas. She was in New York, Presbyterian, I think, for special treatment. And I went to visit her and said, Brooke, I brought you some of my new stories. I thought I'd read to you. She goes, really? I thought you came so I could give you another idea for a book. Okay. She said,
okay, that works too.
She said, could you write a story called The Princess and the Parakeet? And I want the parakeet to be all white with gold feathers on its head. And I said, okay, I think I can write that. And we decided that the parakeet was a prince that got turned into a bird because of a jealous sorcerer who got so jealous his skin turned green. And we decided to give some of the names. She got to pick her sister's name. Her mother was pregnant at the time. Aww. And she got to pick, they knew it was going to be a girl. She got to pick her sister's name. She picked Juliana. She said, you can put Juliana in, but she can't be the princess. I said I'd probably write that. So I wrote
Cute.
a long short story, but she passed away before I finished.
Aww.
So I made her the princess and took all the names from people in her family. And then it became a novel. This was one of the reasons that I think of myself as a vessel instead of I'm the instigator of all this stuff. Right. The doctor who cared for her at the end of her life was talking about her in an article, and said that she was always singing and that she was always wearing the brightest colors, and everybody loved her. And I read this after the book was I was in London, and because the book won the Best Children's Book at the London Book Festival. And I had to do a speech, and my friend sent me this article about Brooke. Oh. And I opened my book and I described the princess in it. And it says, she always wore the brightest colors and ran through the castle hallways singing. So that's when I realized, oh, I didn't make this stuff up. It was already there. So that's what she was like. And I feel like that book contains her spirit. So I tell kids about her when I visit schools, and they go, well, that's so sad. And I go, it is, but there's things that are heartbreakingly beautiful, and she gets to live on because you know her now, and she lives on in this book, and her spirit lives on, and her mom can still be proud of her, and she is. So.
Aw, I love that. It's beautiful. This is the book Marc is talking about, and hopefully everybody can see it without window shine on it, but that's wonderful. Well, I can't wait to read it. I'm currently on this one. I appreciate you autographing it to Prince Samuel. That's fantastic. Oh, yeah. My grandbaby.
How old is he now?
He's just a year old, a little over a year.
Yeah, it'll be a few years before you can read those stories too.
Right. But I'll have them mastered by then. I can just recite them.
You can tell your own version of them.
Exactly. Well, Marc, It has been a pleasure chatting with you about writing and your stories and your process. And I hope that if you do a workshop or something interesting, another book, that we connect and come back on and talk about your latest book.
Anytime, I would love to.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you to everyone who tuned in, watched, listened. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you next week.